Tonight for dinner, we're making a creamy ricotta chicken and orzo skillet. Now, this is gonna go into the oven, but it's all made in one pan. So we're gonna use our cast iron skillet. You can use any oven-safe pan though. I really like this recipe because it requires minimal preparation. Almost everything that I need is over here on the countertop. I've already set it over there since we're gonna be cooking on that side of the kitchen. We do need to get our cheese shredded. Now, obviously, you can buy your cheese shredded, but we like to use our cheese grater that we have and just shred up cheese. It usually comes out a little bit cheaper that way. And typically I'll buy in bulk. This one was not purchased in bulk, so I don't think it saved us all that much money. But we need to do that, and we need to cut up a shallot, and then we'll be ready to do this. So let's start with the cheese. Now, if you've been here for a while, you've seen me use this before because it is a very commonly used kitchen item. It's always linked in my description box and in the Amazon storefront that I have. We're just gonna put this directly into one of my glass storage containers, which I don't really have the appropriate size for this. So it's gonna go in a container much larger than what we actually need. So we're gonna just shred up this cheese. Gonna go right here into this container. We use this thing for everything. I shred carrots, zucchini. I mean, like, if you can shred it, we use this machine for it. Or would you call it a machine? I guess you would. You would call it a machine, a simple machine. I need to know in the comments, have you purchased one? Do you own one of these? Because I know a lot of you have, and you love it, but I wanna know if you have not yet gotten one for yourself. Ooh, here's a nice little chunk of cheese that we'll add into the recipe. Okay, so one of the cool things about this too is it can go in the dishwasher. Super convenient. All right, let's add this to our supplies over there. Okay, our next step is to thinly slice a shallot. And I don't know if I'm gonna use a whole one. I'm probably not. So just thinly slice, as thin as you would like it to be. Yeah, I definitely think only half. Only half is good for our family, but obviously use as much as you like. If you don't have shallot, just grab some onion. My husband has been warming up to the idea of shallot. He did ask me the last time I used it though. That didn't do very well, did it? The last time I used it, he said, "Did you put onion in this?" I said, "No, that's shallot, which you said I could do." He's warming to the idea. You know what? I could have used my cheese grater for this because there is a slicing tool. Oh my gosh, my eyes. Okay, we can do it. We can make it through. All right, that's gonna have to be good enough. Okie dokie, let's move over to the stove. I'm gonna use my cast iron skillet, but we also need to preheat the oven to 375 degrees. Once this is cooked up and combined, then we can throw it in the oven. I've currently got my stove onto a medium-high heat, and there's about a tablespoon of avocado oil in there. My chicken is seasoned with some salt, some paprika, some crushed red pepper or cayenne red pepper, and some Italian seasoning. We're gonna put that in there, season side down, so I can season the other side. We wanna get a nice sear on this. Okay, we need to season this side, so I'm running out of Italian seasoning here. Oh, I also used a little bit of paprika, mostly for color, but you get a little smokiness with it, which is nice. A little bit of that cayenne red pepper, not too much. And some salt. Also, feel free to use chicken breast. It doesn't have to be chicken thighs. You guys know this is our preference, but it does not have to be this way. All right, so we're gonna let that cook for a couple more minutes. Let them get a nice color on them, then we'll transfer to a plate. All right, so we're gonna transfer the chicken to a plate. It's not fully cooked, and that's okay because it is gonna go into the oven. Set that to the side. And now we need to add in our mushrooms, shallot, and garlic. And we've still got some oil in the pan, so I think we're gonna be all right there. We need about 2 garlic cloves. I went ahead and minced up some garlic cloves that I had and just put them in a little container. So actually, let me turn my heat down before we do this because the heat is rolling right now. And we don't wanna burn the garlic. Let's go ahead and while that calms down, I'm gonna put in some mushrooms. This is about a little over a cup or so of Bella mushrooms, baby Bella. So we'll put those in. Adding in that shallot that we sliced. And then about 2 cloves of garlic. That should be good. So this part is really only gonna take about 4 minutes or so. We're just waiting until the shallots are a little bit tender and those mushrooms are a little bit more tender. All right, so now we're gonna add in some mushroom. This is not mushroom, this is spinach. That's a large stem, so I'm gonna take that off. Add in about, I don't know, maybe 4 handfuls or so and just start to let it wilt. And we're gonna drop some on the floor. And the dog is not gonna get that, I know it. It's gonna stay there. All right, light toss on this just to get it moving around and wilting a little bit. Okay, so we're starting to wilt, looking good here. This is gonna be a very full skillet. I have 2.5 cups of bone broth here. You can use, oh, the oven is working today. You can use 2 cups of bone broth and add in a 1/2 cup of dry white wine. I didn't have any of that right now and I didn't want to buy it for just a 1/2 cup. So we're gonna add in about a 1/2 cup of the bone broth and just let that reduce for a minute or 2. I've got my heat on a medium. I've had people ask me that question before. What if I don't have wine, or why don't you want to use wine? Most of the time, if a recipe calls for any type of alcohol, it will change the taste a little bit, but you can use a broth in substitution. So if you don't want to buy it, if you feel like it's pretty expensive, you know, honestly, if you're wanting to cut down cost in the meal, or maybe you just don't consume alcohol, bone broth, chicken broth, stock, whatever you want to use, and you're going to get the same effect. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. We have 1 cup of orzo. Let's add all of that in. Add in 2 cups of the bone broth. Add all of that in. Yep. We're gonna add about 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. You can also add the zest of a lemon too. That's really gonna add some great flavor. I do wanna add in a little bit of salt, just about a 1/2 teaspoon. Oh, you know what? Actually, we're gonna do a little bit more because keep in mind that bone broth is less salty than chicken broth, so you do wanna make sure you get good flavor. We also need to add in the ricotta cheese. It's about 3/4 of a cup. Okay. I just spilled ricotta on my floor. No big deal. If you don't have one of these, it's literally the best invention ever. I use it every single day. Also, full disclosure, I wasn't anticipating you guys seeing the bottom half of me, which is why we have party on the top and lounging at home on the bottom. But then this happened, so, you know. Okay, back to the ricotta cheese. Let's add about 3/4 of a cup of that ricotta. And then we're gonna stir all of this together. And because this is cast iron, I can just use this spoon, which I would not normally do on my other pans. Okay, we're stirring it all together. We're bringing it up to a simmer, which it's pretty much there because we had to take that little commercial break. We have a simmer, so I'm gonna add the chicken back in. And you can cut it up if you want. I'm actually just gonna nestle it back in here, like so. This is a very, very full pan. Let's add some cheese to the top. I'm adding maybe overall about a cup or so. I'm not gonna measure. We're just gonna make sure that it's cheesy, nice and cheesy at the top. Okay, now we can turn the heat off, and this is gonna go into the oven for about 15 minutes. All right, 15 minutes into the oven. I'm gonna attempt not to spill this thing. Okay. I ended up letting this dish cook for about 30 minutes as opposed to 15. The liquid really needed longer to absorb. And I went back through and read some of the comments from others that had made this before, and they said they just cooked it longer. And so the liquid it's a little better now. I also let it sit for about 5 minutes after taking it out of the oven, and it does thicken up a little bit. There's still a little more liquid than I would prefer in this dish. So moving forward, I think if you're gonna make this one, I would adjust the liquid down. So it called for overall 2.5 cups. I honestly think you can probably get away with closer to 1.5 cups, maybe 1 3/4. I think the recipe overall is good. I just think cutting down the liquid is gonna make it a lot better. I am gonna do a taste test for you in just a second, but I wanted to say that beforehand. On second thought now, I'm thinking maybe 2 cups of liquid. So omit that first 1/2 cup. I mean, you would still put a 1/2 cup in, but then the rest of it would just be 1.5 cups, if that makes sense. Because it is absorbing it pretty well. I did have to bake it for longer than what it said though. So let's give this a try. I'm gonna try the little bits of orzo. I also added some basil to the top. We only have purple basil, but it adds just a nice little color. It has good flavor. I do think one thing you could do that would be really fun, once you get everything into the pan, before you top it with that mozzarella, maybe put some dollops of ricotta in there just so you get some nice like bites of ricotta. I think that would be a really good thing. Our verse today comes from Philippians 3:10-11, that I may know him and the power of his resurrection, and may share his sufferings, becoming like him in his death, that by any means possible I may attain the resurrection from the dead. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you want another amazing meal that you absolutely need to make this week because your family is going to love it, and it is easy and it is so tasty, check out the meal that I have listed above. Also, if you're new here, I would love if you would subscribe and stick around. I've got so much more content just like this that you are going to love. Hope you have a great week.